Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 10th talk of the 2023 Winter Speaker Series hosted by the Nepean Sailing Club. I'm Mark Edwards, and I'm going to be the MC for this evening. We're actually in our 18th year of these talks, and it is a delight to be able to get together in person again this year. And a special welcome to everybody that's joining us on YouTube remotely. Next slide. So one of the goals of holding the speaker series talks is to raise money for the Legacy Fund, which provides financial support for exceptional sailing and boating experiences for youth, able sailing, and adult sailing. So we're asking everybody to toss in, perhaps a $5 or the cost of a beer. Dominic will be bringing the jug around. And for everybody who's viewing us remotely, you can do this on Eventbrite, or if you've done it already on Eventbrite, that would be great. So tonight until 10 p.m. and in future weeks, you can donate online via Eventbrite. Simply click on the register button and select the donation option. Again, if you did so already, thank you very much. So next slide on the... The Winter Speaker Series are continuing both live and in person, and we're streaming this year on YouTube as opposed to Zoom, which we did last year. And if you're joining us online, we're glad you could join us, although I can say it's really nice to be in person this year, interacting live and getting together and having a drink or two. Here. All of the talks are being recorded and are available on the Nepean Sailing Club TV channel on YouTube. And if you're joining us from another club or farther afield, welcome. And it would be really nice if you could go onto the forum and in the chat and just let us know where you're reaching us from so that we can see how far we're reaching tonight. Okay, next slide, please. So quick word of thanks to all of the volunteers that make this happen, including our speakers, but we have a batch of organizers, Tony Wright, Park Davis, Stephen Kidd, and myself. And there's also the people that are sort of behind the scenes, although front and center, or not quite front and center tonight. So we've got Sean Batten, Jason Zaire, Richard Kalin, Ron Evans, and sometimes I'm over there as well. Most of the speakers and organizers are volunteers. The club runs on volunteers, as everybody knows. So if you have topics to speak on this year or next, or if you want to join us and help put the show on the road, that would be great. Just drop us a line. The email is winterspeaker@nsc.ca. Next slide, please. So next week's talk, just to give it a bit of a plug, Dominic will be talking about outlining ways you can enjoy boating activities at the club. Dominic being our fleet captain, he knows all about that. So, we're looking at full steam ahead, perhaps needing an icebreaker, but full steam ahead for sailing this year. We've got 42 kilometers of water to enjoy in a great 6-month season, and we're all ready to go on that. So you can find out more about getting your sailboat out more often, renting a dinghy, participating in the biggest club race program in North America, and helping deliver a whole club welcome to regatta guests. So on to tonight's presentation. So tonight we're talking about everything you need to know about keeping your boat here at the Nepean Sailing Club, the harbor, trailer launch, the park, or the yard, or how to get out on the water. So tonight we've got Corey Glynn, James Poole, and Paul Wagner. So Corey is the harbor master and rear commodore, and is responsible for mooring and harbor policies, which is why you know where my boat is or what my boat is. James is our marine and property manager, responsible for operation of the harbor and property, along with many, many other things. And Paul is an experienced NSC member, former board director, and active volunteer. Paul is on the harbor committee and is often seen leading one of the crane teams during a launch or haul out. So we're all happy to take questions during the talk, either during the talk or at the end. For those of you in the room, please come up and use the mic here. For those online, use the chat function and we'll have somebody monitoring that. So, without further ado, off you go, guys.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thanks very much, Mark. Thanks for a great introduction, and good evening, everybody. Yep, full steam ahead. Harbor is as solid as it gets right now, but it won't be for long, and we're looking forward to a great sailing season. I wanted to introduce two people with me. I brought along two of my friends to help out with tonight's presentation. James Pohl, who, as Mark mentioned, is staff here at Nepean. He's the Marine and Property Manager. He's responsible for almost everything physical, I would say, right? Docks, yard, fence, security, building, that type of thing. And as a really, he's a child of Nepean and really gets what's going on around here. And a special call out to Paul Wagner, who's joining me here. When Paul signed up to do this, he was Paul Wagner, great volunteer, good member, in charge of launch and haul out. You've probably seen him there. And since
I'm a little scared when I'm going to become there.
Yeah. Since then, Paul's become the Vice Commodore of this club. So you've got the Vice Commodore and the Rear Commodore and the guy who's really in charge. And we picked a different format for tonight, is sitting at a high top in front of you all, because the agenda tonight is more akin to the type of thing that we'd be talking about in the bar over a drink. So we thought doing it from the bar would be a good thing. So if we can move on to the next slide. Oh, we're already there? Okay, great. So just in terms of what we plan to cover, despite the fact that we're talking about harbor and yards and all that sort of thing, it's really about your boat, and it's about sailing, and it's about having a boat at the Nepean Sailing Club, which is why we're here. Any of you who have dealt with our club, and maybe just pause there for a moment, how many people are already members of the Nepean Sailing Club? How many people have a keel boat here, so in the harbor? How many people have a boat up on the Hards, trailer launch, park, something like that? Okay. How many people aren't members of the Nepean Sailing Club? Okay, so we're hoping you'll join. Tonight's part of the sales pitch. Dominic, really the sales pitch next week. And it's a good thing, actually, that we're working in this order, because Dominic planned to heckle us tonight, but because he's on next week, now that's completely off the agenda. Okay.
Although I don't trust him.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I'm ready. So, you know, some of you who have dealt with the club already, you're probably familiar with some of the kind of rules of the road, the regulations that we have around here, the rules, the way we move things, the schedule and whatnot. They may seem a bit arcane, but I would like to point out that they've been pretty finely tuned over 45 years to shorten the distance between you and your boat and getting out on the water. So some things may seem a bit wacky from time to time in terms of how we do things, but really our intent, and certainly the intent of these three people, is to get you enjoying your boat out on the Ottawa River and taking advantage of everything that's here, whether it's cruising or whether it's racing or whether it's just going out for a day sail. What haven't I covered, fellas? Okay, so just in terms of our agenda, we're loosely going to follow sort of the elements that it takes to be a member here at Nepean and own a boat here, and then we'll spend a little bit of time talking about what's new and up and coming in the harbor, the yard, and the park. Sound good?
Perfect.
You guys are cool with that? That's consistent, thank you. Oh, Renee.
Applause are always appreciated.
Thank God you're here. She doesn't have to chip in. Everybody okay with that? Kind of meets your expectations?
And if you have questions, just stop us.
Yeah.
Don't wait till the end, because we may not get there, so just stop us.
Fair enough. Okay, if we can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. You probably already know, but the NSC hosts primarily 4 different types of fleet here at the club. We have keel boats, which are over 10,000 pounds, which are pretty much obliged to launch and haul out with something we call commercial launch, which is when we bring in the commercial cranes and launch the boats, which are past the capacity of the 2 club cranes that we have here. We also have a large number of keel boats, which are under 10,000 pounds. In fact, pretty much the majority of the harbor is under 10,000 pounds. A lot of these boats are launched by the members themselves, which we fully support. We also have some super capable service providers on site who can help you do it or do it for you. And all of their detailed information is available on the website. We have a trailer launch area, which is dedicated to boats that launch every time they're used. So these are boats under 10,000 pounds, primarily the racing set who wants the super smooth hull. So they launch their boats, race, come back at the end of the race, pull it back out, put it up on the hard, hose it down, get ready for the next week. Like Mike Thompson and his Viper fleet as an example. And then up in the north end of the property, we have an area for dolly launched boats, which we call the park. And these are boats that are launched by hand each time they're used. Albacores, 505s, catamarans, lasers. What am I missing? Anybody? 420s. Thank you very much. A lot of effort has gone into the park last year and will again this year. I'll get to that in a second. You move on to the next slide. Okay. So this is where you are. You are here. So a map of our facility. Our harbor has 501 slips in it. Used to have 500, and then when we modified for the North Crane, we added an extra slip, so we have 501 slips. We have 52 trailer launch spots available for boats that launch every time they're used, and then up in the park, 147 slips. The park is a pretty good opportunity for us. Paul will get to it in a sec, but we're at about 70–75% capacity in the park. Like to see some more sailors up there with lasers and 420s and albacores and catamarans and the rest. But just so you know what the geometry of the club is all about. The park has 2 dedicated launch facilities up there, so that boats can be hand launched. The trailer launch boats use one of the 2 cranes. The harbor boats launch and haul out usually twice a year. And then there's, of course, the public launch ramp down in the bottom left-hand corner. So we, on behalf of the city, administer a public launch ramp. Some of our powerboat owners use it, so take boats out of trailer launch and use it. But for the most part, it's people coming and going, launching boats, just general public, right? The good news is, for the time being, all the money that they collect comes back to the club. So we give it to, right?
Yep.
Just checking.
No,
we give it to the city, and then the city donates it back to us for the sailing school. What else did I cover? Is there anything you wanted to cover?
Yeah, a couple of things. Just about the harbor, it's interesting. I mean, so built, back in 1979, built the bit of peninsula there to give it a bit of a breakwater and give us a space to build out the harbor that you see here. Interesting thing about the harbor, though, not flat underneath. So looks flat on the top, always, typically. But underneath, what's that? Typically.
Too.
But underneath, it's not. So it's actually like this. So it's shallower over at that end of the harbor and deeper over at this end. So you'll actually notice in the way we've depicted it here on the screen, some of the smaller boats are over on the east side, on the west side, and the larger boats are on the east side. I know I got it right.
You got it right.
I got it right in the end. Applause are always appreciated. Thank you, Renee. And so a couple of things. There's also, because it is under the water and things move over time, and it wasn't perfectly paved, there are some hazards to navigation under the water depending on how deep the water is. So you have to keep that in mind as you're moving around. We try to let people know where those things are. One of the interesting things, though, is if you think, so each of those docks have a letter, and so I'll walk up, hopefully the microphone will capture me here. But
keep going.
I got a good voice. So if you take this dock, and this dock, it actually equals what Corey's been calling the park. So in terms of capacity, in terms of number of boats. So it gives you a sense of the number of boats and slips that we actually have in the harbor. So, and every year we spend time, there's a whole crew of people, and I think Corey will talk about this in a couple of slides, that figure out, because every year the number of boats and the types of boats changes. It's not static year to year. And so there's a team of people that figure out what's the best placement of the boats based on how big they are, how deep the boats are, where they should actually be in the harbor as well as in the park. So it's a huge coordination activity, I think, from year to year. Anything else?
No, perfect. All good. We're going on to the next slide, and it's over to you, James.
Awesome. So as you can see on this slide, who is who when it comes to you and your boat? Well, as you know, we're a nonprofit. We have a board of directors and we have a staff that all work as a team to get you closer and into the water with your boats, like Corey was mentioning. The board is directed by our Commodore, or you would call CEO, but Commodore in sailor speak, of David Naismith. Paul Wagner right here is your Vice Commodore. Corey Glynn as the Rear Commodore. Now the Vice Commodore is in charge of the building, staffing, health and safety, all of those things. So if you have problems with those, definitely a great point to reach out to. Corey Glynn, harbor side, on water, in the harbor, and boats on land. If it's on water and you're out in the river, contact me or Dominic Fleet, who will be talking next week. There's a little crossover, but there's lots of people to connect to is what we're really trying to get at with this slide. On the staff side of the house, we have our new general manager, Tricia McBride, who's waded in and done a lot of work for us. I can be reached in the office. I'd like to say 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
But it's more like 24/7?
Yeah, pretty much. Sailing activities, sailing school, everything. Sean Batten is a key guy to know. And I can't not say Jamie Lynn. She is our membership administrator, and she is your first point of contact when you call the office and not sure what you need to do and you just start mashing buttons to talk to somebody. She will sort it out and get you to the right person or answer the question for you. But please contact the office if you have any questions about anything, and we're all more than happy to get you into your boat and get you sailing.
Right, exactly. All good?
Perfect. So, 2 powerful tools. Let the office know. I joke with Corey and other people around here. I don't know anything's broken in this club until I'm sitting at the bar at 4 o'clock on a Friday and someone comes up and says, hey man, there's a loose nail by my dock. It's a great way for me to get information and fix stuff, but send me an email, it's easier to track. If you don't want to, call the office and just leave a message, it's great. We don't really have a complaint box. We like to be in person and personal to come and approach us. And if you see me wandering out with a clipboard, I'm not really hiding. I'm actually trying to get some work done. But please stop me and say, hey, James, I'm not sure about this, or where do I do that, or who do I talk to about this? Yeah. We're all very approachable. Just wanted to go on with a couple of examples of questions that have come up a lot in the past. If you have any questions about the physical building, bathrooms, parking lots, the yard, again, contact me, please. Gates. My phone will ring off the hook in about a week when the frost comes out of the ground and our lovely pedestrian gate. The posts move out of the frost at different times, so the gate never stays lined up. I try and fix it as much as I can, but it is what it is with Mother Nature. Simple thing like, I want to power my boat overnight, or I started working on my boat and I forgot that tool at home, or I'm going home to get something, and you leave it on the service docks. Just contact the office. We have 11 service dock spots for 501 wet slips. And if I can manage it, great. If you come into the office and say, I need to leave it overnight because I have to do X, Y, or Z, fine. I look out the window and I go, you're really in the pump out spot. Can I come out and give you a hand? We'll move your boat to the wall, and then it's fine overnight, not a problem. It's when you go out and there's a boat in the way and you don't know who it belongs to is what starts escalating issues. Other things, your account doesn't make sense. You didn't get notified by an email for something. Questions about an invoice. Call the office, talk to Jamie Lynn, stop in, say hi. We can't solve any problems if we don't know what the problems are, is basically what we're getting down to with this slide.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
I think this one's over to Paul. And I mean, on the point on the service docks, this happens a lot. I mean, those of you who have said they owned boats, how many people have had all of the tools that they needed for every job they came to the yard to do? Anyone? Never happens, right? So we get some congestion at the service dock where people get, oh my God, I forgot my thing, and they hop in the car and they dash home to get it thinking no problem, but if we get 3 or 4 of those, then we get congestion at the docks. So just lean into the office, find out who's there, where do you want me to put my boat, I forgot something, I need to dash, I got a call from work or whatever, right? Like that sort of thing. I've got this theory that the tool that you need for the job is as far away from you as possible at the moment that you need it. It applies to houses and harbors as well. Mike, if you're gonna ask a question, it's gonna cost you 20 bucks and you gotta use the microphone. And if it's about vipers, the answer is no.
You can't handle a viper. Dumb question.
No such thing.
What is the service dock and where is it? And why do I need to know?
Okay, time out. All right. Thank
Applause
you.
for a question?
Sean,
Really? We're at that point of the night?
is it possible to go to the last slide in the deck? Okay.
I was gonna say,
Do you want to do this? Do you know where the service dock is?
Hope so. We had a slide, yes, there we go.
That one will do.
So we're sitting up here right now. This is the service dock. If you look out the window, it's just down in front for those at home. This is our service dock section along here. This is the first crane well. So anywhere in here or along the wall of the club is what we consider the service dock. This first slit beside the well, we like to keep open for people that are launching boats. And then we have an area that we like to keep open for people using pump out. So in, pump your boat out, take off, go back to your slip. The rest of them are all negotiable on, we ask for 2 hours. If you're gonna be more than 2 hours, come and have the conversation.
Good on that one, Mike? And a key point on this is the slip that James highlighted that's right outside the crane well. There's one on the north crane as well. And these are areas that need to be kept clear. So any of you who have a boat that's in the harbor, you can pretty much unfettered access to your boat in and out whenever you want. For folks that are launching their boats off the crane, they need free access to the channel right away. So if there's a boat blocking their way and they can't get out, it's kind of like parking behind somebody in the shopping center. It's like no go, no bueno, as my nephew says. It's good.
Before you hop off the slide, and Corey just said something, I want to make sure everybody's sort of aware. He said north crane. So we actually do have 2 cranes. I mean, we'll often just assume some things as we walk through this, and so we'll correct each other as we go here. I like correcting Corey. I get to do it once in a while.
Yeah.
So we have 2 stationary cranes. So we call this one the north crane, for obvious reasons, and the south crane. So, and you can see them out there. And those are the cranes, when Corey was talking about the boats that are, the keel boats that are under 10,000 pounds, or the trailer launch boats, those are the cranes that we use to actually put those in the water. For any of the keel boats that are over 10,000 pounds, we actually have commercial cranes that come in to do that work.
Beautiful.
We have another question.
Good question, Mike. Thank you.
2
20
questions
bucks.
on cranes. First of all, do you know which one's the north one? But should I choose one versus the other? Does it matter? Are they equivalent?
I can answer this one. They're not exactly equivalent, Dominic, so thank you for the question. It cost you 20 bucks. The cranes in terms of capacity to launch your boat are exactly the same. So it's 10,000 pounds on each crane. The crane on the south end of the harbor is a little older, and when you are launching the boats, you pull the boom around manually to put the boat over the water. The crane on the north end is powered so that you can move the boat around under power. Likewise for the masting crane. So each well has a crane to launch the boat and a crane to do work with your mast. On the south crane, the masting crane is manual, and on the north crane, it's automated. Handy if your boat's all higher capacity, heavier mast, a little easier to use the power for sure. It also depends on where in the yard you might be coming from. One might be more convenient than the other one, but otherwise their capacities are pretty much the same. Good question though, thank you.
Any other questions?
Floyd, push
Floyd.
Service dock, so what, to do repairs on your boat, or versus why don't you just repair it where your slip is?
Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, for sure. You can do repairs on your boat, in your slip. We ask that you fuel at the service dock. Generally, most people will use the service dock for loading big for the weekend, pumping out fresh water. If you have somebody coming to put decals on your boat, instead of having the person working on your boat walk all the way out to the end of the back of beyond, you can bring your boat over, they can do the work, and then you can take your boat back. But that is something you are responsible for, not the person that's doing the work on your boat.
Power as well. So if you need power tools, and and they're electric, they're not the battery-powered power tools. No power at the docks out there, but at the service docks you do have power. So if you got the shop vac, you want to run a drill, you got to use a heat gun for something, pressure washer. You're doing it at the service dock. So huge amount of traffic at the service docks, typically in the spring. Everybody gets their boats out, they want to clean them up. So that's when it becomes a bit of a dance to make sure that people are there for the right amount of time, but one of the big reasons to go there as well.
Spring, one sec, Jim, we'll just get to your question in a minute. Spring and also beginning and ends of weekends.
Yeah.
Right? So just, if you were coming down, let's say for example, you're trying to pick a time, I want to come down and work on my Tanzer 22, it's not time sensitive. Try to avoid Friday afternoon and Sunday night, because there's all sorts of people queued up, right, if you can do it some other time. Sorry, over to you.
Thanks, Corey. For us newbies, I believe if we should want to use the cranes, there is a training regime that we go through. Is that offered one-on-one if you need one, or do you offer it several times, set times during the year?
Right, I'll take this one. That's okay. So I'll mention it in a second or two, but the cranes are the property of our members, and you're free to use them. We ask that you not try to coerce club staff into using the cranes for you because they're not insured to do that. So the service providers are, members effectively are. So what we offer is what we call a crane familiarization course. It's not a heavy equipment training, but it's familiarization so that you know how they work and what things to avoid and how to prepare. And this, in past years, we've run them sporadically through the summer. And this year, our plan is to align them with another event on the club calendar, which is the cooperative launching activity. So for members who can launch off a trailer, we have a cooperative event in the fall, or in the spring to launch, and in the fall to haul out, where a bunch of members will come down and everybody helps everybody catch your boat in the water, which is good, many hands, light work. And at the same time, we'll be running the crane familiarization with it as well, because that way we have real boats and we have real people doing the work. The date has slipped my mind, but it's in
Saturday before launch, so May 6 minus 7 days.
May 6 minus 7 days.
April 30th.
You got that, don't
Yeah.
you? Okay.
No complex math tonight, we promise.
Yeah, awesome question. Thank you.
Anything else?
Paul, I think this one's yours.
This one's mine. So having a boat at NSC, something I wish I did. I used to. So I was the only reason I'm up here. I'm an only child, so I need a little bit of extra love. And two, I used to have a boat.
Do you want that hug now, or do you want
give me the hug later. Yeah. So I've owned and I've bought and sold a couple of boats at the club, and so we're in between boats now, looking to have one hopefully by the end of the year. But a couple of things that you need to actually own a boat here at the Nepean Sailing Club. First is you have to be a member, and the important part, or one of the most important parts actually of the talk tonight, is this is a club. We happen to have a harbor, we happen to have a marina, if you want to call it that. We're not a marina that allows you to put your boat here. So it is a club, and so you need to be a member of the club to have a boat here. The second most important thing is you need to have insurance for that boat, and there's a bunch of different insurance plans you can sign up for. But most importantly, you have to give that insurance information before you put the boat in the water here to the office. Back to what James was saying, let the office know. So we actually, if you look on our website, we have a proof of insurance page where all of the pertinent information around who's the provider, what's the policy number, all that good stuff. Really, really important. There's 501 boats in the water, another 150 or so on the hard, actually more than that. And so making sure that you've got insurance in case something goes wrong is absolutely critical, both for you and for us as a club. You have to own the boat. So owning the boat is, a few people I've talked to tonight thinking about buying a boat, and they want to get into that game. And a lot of people have walked down the docks and think that it's a rich person's sport. It doesn't have to be. For $4,000 or $5,000, you can get yourself a boat and get into sailing. There's also a couple of Vipers for sale that are very reasonably priced, excellent boats. Mike Thompson may have one of those for sale. The other thing you can do is join a syndicate. So in other words, get a group of people together that are interested in sailing, buy a boat, and put it into, get it on the water. The important thing about a syndicate is there's one member of record that has to be identified. And that's the person that the club deals with. We're not gonna deal, like, so if there's 5 or 6 people that own the boat, we're gonna deal with the one person that's the member of record. And that's the person that we go back and forth. What the deal is from a syndicate perspective, you pay 15%, you pay 30%, we don't care. There's one person, and that person needs to be named as what we call the member of record. Getting into a syndicate is a great way to get into sailing. A lot of people take courses, we'll talk in a couple of slides about advantage boating, great one of our partners to help people get into sailing. And a great way to start, instead of getting your own boat and buying your own boat, is getting into a syndicate. But you have to understand what the sort of the rules of the road are with that syndicate. But from us, from a club perspective, the thing that we really care about is that we have one member of record. The last thing I would say is, or 2 things. One, you have to launch the boat. The idea for the club, that seems like, well, that's obvious.
Land here.
If only it was. The mantra of the club is boat, explore, and belong. And so getting on your boat, getting into the water, and heading out past the marks and heading upriver is what we're here, what we're about, right? So the idea of not a storage facility, exactly.
Yeah.
So making sure you launch the boat, making sure that it's seaworthy, and you can head out. Whether you go out once a year, 10 times a year, that's even better. Or, there's some people that go, I'm not sure I'm sure we have a record at some point, but, 50 times a year, great. But get out on the water, and so you have to launch the boat. The last part is, as Corey mentioned at the beginning, and it's a really, really important point, the club's been in existence for 45 years, almost. And the policies and procedures that we've developed have been honed through those years. And so it's important that all of us, and even the old salts in the club, review the policies, understand, because they do change, they do evolve. So you know what your rights are, what your obligations are. They're all spelled out in those policies, and they will continue to evolve. But important to know sort of what the policy framework is that is governing the club. And that's around where you put your boat, the kind of work that you can do on your boat at your slip, as Floyd was asking, versus the kind of work that has to happen at the service dock, and so forth. So really, really a huge wealth of information on the website, and we make sure that that's always up to date so that you know what your rights and obligations are.
That's fantastic. That's great. Anything else to add there?
No, perfect.
All good? You slide on to the next slide. Okay. So a tricky topic, docking your vessel. So we've had, I think I drew the short straw on this one. So we've had lots of feedback about people, boats, and slips. And let me start with just a general statement is the channel around your boat, the dock that it's on, the slip that it might be in, and we're talking about the harbor at this point, is professionally designed for your vessel, right? So I reached out to some trusted advisors and said, if anyone has issues docking their boat, what does it fundamentally come down to? And let me share their feedback with you. Let me start with the absolute worst thing you can do is try to come down on a Friday night and dock your boat right down there. And the reason is that everybody's up here having a great time and they're looking at you. And you can feel the pressure of that crushing down on your head. So if there's ever a time to practice your docking skills, it is not on a Friday night when there's a band playing on the deck and the weather is perfect. It may seem like the time to do it, it is not the time to do it.
You'll get the 5 out of 10
yeah,
score.
we're thinking of issuing cards, maybe coming up with a voting system and the whole sort of thing. So a couple of things to feed back to you is that quite often the sort of docking challenges fall into four categories. One is misunderstanding the mechanics of docking. So, coming into a slip too fast, coming into a slip too slow, not having the lines ready on the boat for coming to the dock or ready on the dock to receive the boat, not paying attention to the wind direction at the time. So everything felt fine right until I turned into my slip and then the boat sped up. Well, guess what? The wind's behind you and it's bound to happen. So that sort of general awareness is something to be aware of. some people are just not familiar with the boat's handling, and that may not be their fault. Like, it may be new to them. They may be new to sailing. I've docked a powerboat, but I've never docked a sailboat. They're totally different. How does it work? How quickly do they turn? How quickly can I turn it? How quickly can I slow it down? That sort of thing. And this all points to practice, right? Like, this points to just getting in the boat, finding a day, not Friday afternoon, finding a day that's quiet, maybe finding some help from people that have done it before, reaching out to somebody who's a pro, like Advantage Boating, and saying, hey, can you come down and spend some time with me and guide me through this docking process so I'm more comfortable with it. And then the third thing is something I call proximity apprehension, which translated is fear of being too close to other boats. So I grew up in a powerboating family, and you just don't drive powerboats as close together as you do on a sailboat racing course or in this harbor, right? Like, you just don't do that. But lo and behold, it works, right? So a lot of people are just a little too frightened that I'm gonna get too close to another boat, I'm not gonna be able to get out of the situation that I'm in, and again, this just points to practice. And then something which is often overlooked, and particularly if you're a new boat owner, is to ask the question, does this boat have the original engine in it? Anybody want a sense as to what the problem might be there? Is someone, occasionally, they'll buy an old boat, it has an inboard motor, it's not working properly, they'll pull it out, put an outboard on the back, but the outboard's half the horsepower that the inboard used to be. So its ability to speed the boat up or to slow it down is significantly different. So these are things that are good to know. A lot of folks have outboards on the backs of their boats, but they haven't sort of rehearsed that game that happens when you've got a tiller and an outboard, and you're turning a corner into the slip, and you're reaching back to put the engine into reverse, but you're trying not to lose your hand on the tiller so that you keep the course going into the slip, and I'm making it sound more complicated than
Anybody
it is.
that wanted to buy a boat, you just threw them right off.
Exactly.
Like, they're like, okay, I'm going into golf.
That's right, yeah. I just want someone else to get me out of the harbor and back in. But these are things that just point to practice, find a friend, ask the people around you. This club is rife with advice, and generally it's good, right? So if you go to someone and say, I'm having trouble docking my boat, chances are they've owned the same boat before. They may actually have owned the boat you're trying to dock. You never know, right? Like, it's like, oh yeah, well, that boat's always a problem. Here's what you do to help. And one thing I will say is just brake lines. You know what I'm talking about with the brake lines? So someone's got a line on their boat. It's a fixed length. They glide into the slip, and then they throw the line down onto the dock, and it stops the dock. It stops the boat from going out the front of the dock. They're a great idea. Please don't have to rely on it, right? So we've had a couple of injuries where people who aren't as experienced are dropping the brake line down on the dock and then not getting their hand out of the way fast enough, and they spend a few weeks in the cast while their fingers heal. So just try not to rely on it. Have it there as a guide. Have it there as a safety mechanism for sure. But please, focus on the practicing that goes around docking your boats. Okay.
Awesome.
Come on. Is there anything else?
No, perfect.
Okay.
The only, I'll underline one thing you said, Cor, is, asking other members, again, back to the club, as an example, I was just thinking of the numbers up here, and I'm going to get it wrong, but there's about 120 years worth of experience sitting at this table, give or take.
Right.
Hang on.
Yeah, close.
Yeah, close.
119.
So if you think about the members that are out there, we've seen a lot of things. We haven't seen it all. We've seen a lot of things. And so rely on your club members, rely on your colleagues, and ask the question. This isn't the place for sort of hubris. Have that humility to say, how do I do this? How do you do that? So, Mr. Lund, here we go.
I just want
Hey,
to
Jeff.
highlight prop walk. You haven't mentioned prop walk.
No.
And some boats, particularly mine, has a pernicious prop walk. It takes me, as soon as I put it in reverse, it
Right.
shifts one way. So I think that's something to watch for.
Right. So Jeff's question orbits around something called prop walk. Familiar? Everyone? Not? Say you're not. It's okay. It's cool. So all boats that have a propeller on them that are operating under power, when you put them in reverse, the stern of the boat tends to go one direction or the other. And it depends on a couple of things, chiefly which direction the propeller is rotating, but they have a tendency to walk. The stern of the boat will walk one way or walk the other. If it happens to walk into your dock, that's good news, because it kind of makes the whole process of tucking up to that dock a little bit more straightforward. If it tends to walk away from the dock, then the harder you try to slow the boat down, the more it wants to walk away from the dock.
Been there.
For sure, a real problem. But again, it's something that you can accommodate given the practice with the boat dynamics. Huge advantage, so I got a foot in both camps, powerboat and sailboat. Huge advantage with sailboats is the strength of their rudders. They're big and it makes the boat very maneuverable, and they generally turn on their middle. So with a bit of practice, you can tuck the boat in even though your prop walk's pulling you away. It may cause a couple of, oh my God, moments, but the deal, I think, Jeff, and maybe you'd agree, is try to be moving at the right speed going into the slip, and then you can accommodate a lot of errors. If you're going too fast or too slow, then things can go sideways, so this type of practice is important.
Yeah, the best time to do that too is the spring. So I had a boat that had a prop that was actually offset, so it didn't, had a CNC 29 for anybody that has one of those. And so instead of the propeller coming out of the back straight right in front of the rudder, it was actually offset. So it's designed to actually have prop walk. I'm not sure, we need to talk to the designer of that boat, but so I was constantly, pumping into my neighbor. The best time to practice that and to figure out how your boat works is the spring or the fall, when there's less boats in the harbor. And so pick a nice calm day when there's no boats around you and you can go in and out of your slip as many times as you want. There's nobody else around, there's nobody doing marking you in terms of how you're doing, but there's also no other boats that you're gonna bang into. So you get some experience in how to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Another great one on figuring out how your boat moves is dollar store pool noodles. Take 3 or 4 of them, string them together with a floaty rope,
Yeah.
go out in the middle of the lake, throw it out and pretend it's a dock.
Ah.
So you can't hurt anything, you can't hurt anyone else, and there's a straight line for you to either T2, side 2, back 2, and just use it as a pretend piece of dock out in the middle of the river. And
That's applause, Renee.
multicolor.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we pretty much drained the docking thing.
I think we did.
Yep.
So,
Awesome.
Okay, over to you, James.
The yard. There is, I am pretty sure that's this year's picture. That is what's stored in our yard right now, as we're speaking. That is a mixture of what we call the commercial crane haul out, which is this top section. And the service providers and the members do all of this. And that all gets packed in the fall, and that all, everybody by May 24 wants it in the water, right?
Yeah, on the same day.
On the same day, Friday of May 24, everyone wants to go boating. So you'll see that this is gonna cause some congestion spring and fall. So in the last, I think 5 years, we've started asking members not to park in the yard. It's gotten to the point where we lock the gates at certain times, just to keep people out of the yard. We're not keeping you away from your boat. We're making it more efficient in the yard to get more boats into the water faster. Because if you have to move a boat and there's 6 cars in your way with no keys left in them, every time you want to move that many boats, you put 1 boat a day in the water. And it's just not efficient. So there's a couple of things we want to, like Corey said, we want to get you in the water and we want to get you sailing. We're not trying to keep you away from your boats, and there's always an exception to the rule. But open on weekends, if we publish that to members, vehicles, foot traffic inside the gate, park for 5 minutes if you have to, but we're really not asking you. Until the parking areas are established, please park in the city parking lots. Closed. If you see that come out, it means no vehicles, no parking, no foot traffic. We're doing something in the yard that is potentially dangerous to people walking around. We're moving cradles, we're moving boats en masse, and having extra bodies around that we're not looking for. Yes, you should always look when you're backing up, but we're trying to reduce the risk. This happens very infrequently. The other one is closed to vehicles, and this happens for about 3 to 4 weeks every spring and fall. The gate's closed. Now we have a man gate on that side, so you can come and go with your card. It's open for you to walk in, carry stuff to your boat. There's dock carts. If you need to bring a brand new motor to your boat, come find me, or come find one of my staff and say, hey, I got this 500-pound piece of gear, I need to get to my boat, throw it on the ground, drive my car back out. We can accommodate that. If you're launching your own boat and you have a tow vehicle and a trailer and you're doing it all by yourself with friends, come to the office and say, hey, I got the crane booked at 3 o'clock, I need to get my boat in the yard. Not a problem. We're here to get you to get your boats in the yard. We're just trying to make it efficient. And that is really, this is all about efficiency. If we didn't have a game plan and some way of controlling it, we would never fit all those boats in that space.
A key point you made was around parking. So when we're trying to keep vehicles out, you know, everybody says, well, you know, if you park beside a boat and somebody had to move it, it would be bad. Well, you'd be surprised how many times that happens, right? And it's, you know, we're not casting any dispersions on someone's judgment. They may just think, oh, it's not very busy, I'm just gonna dash up and, you know, get a quick drink at the bar, or maybe just use the washroom. And I mean, if you've been at this club for more than 2 years, you know you can't go anywhere from point A to point B without it taking 4 times longer than you think, because you get bumped into by 5 people who go, hey, how's it going? How's it going with the boat? Question about, did you go skiing this year at Tremblant? Yeah, I went skiing at Tremblant a couple of times. That sounds fantastic. And next thing you know, their car's parked beside somebody who's trying to move their boat. So it's a big deal with parking in the yard. We try to, the number of times we try to restrict it, we're trying to shrink so that you're you know, free to come and go. But when we say it's closed to vehicles, we really mean it's closed to vehicles. And I will underscore the point at the bottom of the slide, is most of the people that are working in the yard are either our staff or volunteers, right? So you see someone with the checkered shirt and the construction boots and they're driving a tractor, they may not be staff, they may be a volunteer, right? So avoid the urge to go sideways on them if you don't think they're doing the right thing, or if they've told you that, you know, you can't come into the yard right now because we've got it closed while we do this other thing. Don't go sideways on them. The chances are they're a member just like you are, member volunteer.
And when we do close the yard, we try and publish it as much as we can, well in advance on the website, in the Telltale. So it really shouldn't be a shock that you can't get to your boat for the morning of Saturday.
Yeah, right. Okay, any questions on that before we move on? Okay, that means no trouble this year, right? Everyone's gonna, okay. Okay, so are we doing okay on the agenda for tonight? Are you guys getting what you need? Okay, all right. Okay, so next slide. All right, I'm gonna take this one. I'm gonna walk you through 2 different parts of the year, just from a harbor and yard point of view, and talk about what the typical year looks like for the Nepean Sailing Club, so you get an idea what the cadence of a year here at Nepean looks like. So off season, like right now, so that would be the time between when we close the harbor and open the harbor. The 2 committees that I coordinate, the Harbor Committee and the Mooring Allocation Committee, are super busy. So we generally have sort of around 6 Harbor Committee meetings to plan the year. The Mooring Allocation Committee is meeting at least twice to get the moorings planned out. And there are 2 super important dates that happen in the off season, and they happen in the same time every year. Big hint there, put this on your calendars, please. Tell all your friends to do the same. The 1st of November, your membership fees are due, and on the 1st of March, your mooring fees are due, and we bill a month before that. And this is super important, and here's why. So in November, what we do is we pull a list of all the people that are returning as members to the club, and we use that to start planning what the harbor is going to look like and what the yard's going to look like. Because the simple point is, if you're not renewing your membership, we're kind of assuming you're not planning to come back with a boat. So we're going to start jigging all the slips that are in the harbor to see how much space we have to accommodate changes for the next round. So the November list is super important. And then in March, and this is something we may look at changing, but generally speaking, we send out the invoices and people pay, and we consider that to be a commitment, right? And if they don't pay, we consider that to be a not commitment, right? And we may make some changes about how the mechanics around that work, but what we do is we use the list of people from March that are paid to return to the moorings to finalize what the layout looks like for the returning members, and then start planning for members with new boats, members with upgrades, members who want changes for different reasons, new members that are coming into the club. So we basically given you 2 opportunities to say, yep, I'm back, it's all good, I'd like to do what I did last year, it's all cool. So that by the beginning of March, we know who's returning, and then we can begin to plan the rest. Because we're on kind of a short leash at that point. We've got to get it all turned around and published back to the members 3 weeks before launch, which turns out to be about mid-April. And that data has to get back to you so that you know if I was on the wait list, I'm in a slip, or if I was planning to upgrade my boat, that yeah, we can accommodate you. And like, Paul's an interesting example here. So here's a member who...
Sad example.
It's a sad example, and we'll give you hugs later.
It's the opposite of claps. No applause for this.
Yeah, this is bad. Everybody's a boo. So, you know, Paul's an experienced member. He's got seniority in the club. He's between boats, right? So we do all of the calculations for who goes where and what slips are allocated based on seniority in the club. Paul's got lots of seniority, but he's got no boat. We meet once a year to figure it out. We've already finished those meetings. We're finalizing the moorings. So Paul, who's in the market for a boat right now, if he finds one in August, finds a great boat.
Awesome.
Finds a great boat in August. That's good. It's a good news story, right? Then Paul says, listen, first thing you do is tell the office.
Call the office.
And say, new boat, need the paperwork put together. All good, but we're not meeting again until the following spring, right, to plan out the harbor. So regardless of Paul's seniority, his position on the board, his volunteer status, whatever, we do this once a year, right? So we may be able to give him some temporary accommodations, but bottom line is we do this once a year, right? So the thing you should take away from this slide is my wishes have to be known to the club like in the late winter, early spring for the following year so that it can be properly planned. And then if you make some changes during the summertime, that's all cool, but we need to revisit it again the following spring. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. No? Mark?
I understand the process, I just find it very cumbersome. So when I was looking to buy a boat,
Yep.
it was a chicken and egg.
Yep.
It's like, I'm gonna buy a boat, but I don't have a slip. I can't put in for a slip until I have a boat.
Right.
And it's the same, exactly what you're talking about. And it was extreme, so I have to buy a boat, cross my fingers, and hope I can put it in the water.
And are you?
Well, I bought the boat.
And are you in the water?
I did get a spot, something great. It worked
Yeah.
out. And I bought it from somebody who was here, so it worked out. But
Right.
yeah, I can't just turn and say I'm gonna buy a boat and hope I get a spot, or I can't get a spot ahead of time, no, I'm gonna buy a boat.
Right. And so it's a great point. It's a great story. Like there's dozens of examples like this each year. We'd like to come up with a better approach. We haven't figured it out yet. We've been sort of trying to hone the system for a long time to get a better approach to it. Our track record, though, for getting people into the water is very good.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Right.
I got a spot, we were able to move, it was fantastic.
Now, when you've got a boat hanging in the wind, that doesn't feel like necessarily the right type of assurance that you want. We get that, and we're trying to figure out a different approach. Stay tuned. We may come up with a better one, but for now,
It is the
we are,
membership club.
yeah, we are what we are. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, what else should we talk about? Oh, mooring changes. So if you're a seasoned member, you had a boat in the water last year, it was allocated to you last year, and you weren't happy with it, not because of docking problems. Remember, we've gone through that bit already. We're talking about different reasons, like I bought a bigger boat, or I want to shorten my distance to the club because I've had an injury or whatever. Bottom line, tell the office. Second bottom line is there's paperwork associated with that if you put it into the office, it inserts your name into the process for the next year. And without that, there's nothing we can do. So with it, we can work with it, and there's lots of magic that can happen in the spring meetings when everybody declares what their plans are, but we absolutely need the paperwork in the office, right? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, in the season. So super quick slide, but just a couple of points on here. So a typical harbor year in the boating season. We are mid to late April right now. We're looking forward to opening the harbor as soon as it gets soft again. Right after harbor opening, the docks get put back into, sorry, right after the ice goes, the docks get put back into place, and that officially opens the harbor. So at Nepean, what opening the harbor means is docks are in place, service docks are in place, cranes are operational, and the launch docks are in place for the park. And at that point, people who can get their boats into the water, the season has started, right? Quickly after the harbor's open, so this year it's the beginning of May, we do the commercial launch activity where the cranes come in, lift in the boats that are larger than 10,000 pounds. That creates some space in the yard that lets us open up the trailer launch area, lets us open up the rest of the park. Then quickly on the heels, the racing schedule starts almost right away. We're hosting regattas almost right away. We've got the sailing school hot on the heels to get things started at the Sail Training Center. So boats are being put, yay, Sean! Boats are being put into place. The yard becomes a beehive of activity. Parking is assigned. All that activity takes place. That carries us through the boating season. Then in fall, it's the reverse. So things start to shut down. The school closes down its programs first. This year, for those of you who race in the Frostbite series, quick show of hands, anyone? Okay, so we're gonna make some extra efforts to ensure that the close up in the yard is aligned with the Frostbite so that you're not racing to get your boats off the property. So we're gonna align those things. Another change that we're planning to make is that we've made some changes in the park in terms of the way things work for the dolly launched boats. So we will have some access to the water available for boats as soon as the harbor opens, and we will have it until the harbor closes. So if you have a hand-launched boat, 505s, lasers, that type of thing, be in touch with me about plans to make that work so that we can get a grip on how the layout's gonna work.
Cool. I just went through a whole roller coaster of emotions. Like you talked about spring, I got happy.
Yeah.
Like if boats were going in the water, things were happening, people were on their boats having drinks, and then it got fall and we were done again.
Back on spring. We're almost there, Paul.
Okay,
we're almost there. We're almost there.
Next slide, please. Or any questions on that last slide before I go to? So buying, selling, and changing. So I've done all three of these, and as Corey mentioned, between boats. So a couple of key things, and I think one thing, if you look at selling, buying, changing, tell the office again. So the one thing, if you walk away here from here tonight, tell the office of anything that you're looking to get done. A couple of things that are really important. So when you sell your boat, so you have a boat here at the Sailing Club. We had a CNC 29. We had a slip. We were in that slip for almost a decade. You don't own that slip. You can't sell the slip. You can't pass it on to the new owner. If the new owner is a member of the club, been here for maybe even longer than you have, that's not a slip for you to say, well, here's the boat, and that's the slip. No, here's the boat. You now own the boat, and now you've told the office. It's over to the office to determine if that individual can actually stay in the water. So that slip, even though your boat happens to be tied up against that dock, that's not yours. It's not yours to buy or to sell or to reallocate to a new owner. As we talked about before, the buyer has to be insured. So that's the buyer's responsibility. But for them, if they're a member here and they're looking to keep the boat here as opposed to taking it somewhere else, they have to be insured here. As I mentioned, the buyer, again, these are all the buyers that are at the club. Their membership, their seniority is what's going to drive whether or not they can stay in the water. So when I sold the boat, my CNC 29 as an example, brand new member to the club, got interested in sailing, bought our boat, and then moved into the space of, am I going to have a slip? And he realized, and when we were going through this, he may have bought the boat may have then been taken out of the water and put onto the harbor. That was a possibility. If the harbor would have been full, and there was a wait list of people that had higher seniority than him, he would have bought a boat that was in the water, and would have got moved out of the water. Didn't happen, and most years, as Corey mentioned, we can accommodate these things. So in the end, the boat stayed in the water. I think it moved slips, but he was able to sail out the rest of the season and enjoy the boat for the rest of that season. But that's not a given. It's not, again, like I said, that slip is not yours. If you sell your boat to a non-NSC member, you complete that transaction. The buyer is then responsible to make sure that boat gets out of the yard. So, you know, if they're not planning to keep it here, if they're gonna move it to Britannia, if they're gonna move it to Kingston or wherever, it's their responsibility to get it out of the yard. And we'll follow up obviously with the new owner to make sure that that happens. When you're buying a boat, again, same thing. So, you know, I'm looking to buy a boat, I have to tell once I have a boat that I'm interested in, I have to tell the office, I'm interested in buying that boat. Then I get put into the process, as Corey mentioned. So that may go into the new, you know, into next year. If we're full this year, we're full this year. And then I move into the next year sort of plan model. And again, my membership and my seniority will determine whether I'm gonna be sitting on the hard for another year or whether I get into the water for the new year. And again, you know, for changing, if you're changing boats within the year, as Corey said, if you're moving up, you know, up a boat, down a boat in terms of size, tell the club. There's a mooring change request that gets initiated, and then exceptions can be made again depending on how full or not we are in the harbor. Anything else that I missed?
All good.
Awesome. And if any complaints, James Pohl.
Nice. 2 slides to go. Yours. Sorry. Question?
Yes, definitely a dumb question. But
No,
No, it's not true.
So if you don't have a slip,
Yeah.
are you responsible for towing your boat into the water every time you want to go out?
So let me take a stab at this.
Go for it.
There's 3 different formats that we're good with at the PM.
Okay.
So format 1 is you've got a boat that needs to be in the harbor.
Yeah.
So for example, it might weigh more than 10,000 pounds, or it's that type of boat, you just like to have a dock to come and go from, then that's one fleet.
Okay.
The other fleet is I'd be happy launching my sailboat or powerboat every time I want to use it. So it's going to be stored on the shore, and it's going to be launched every time you want to use it. Trailer launch.
Yeah, I'm probably more of the dolly launch type.
Okay,
Does
so
that mean I
laser,
have to
505,
exactly
that type of thing?
lasers?
Okay, cool. So in the park, we have available slips for boats of all sizes.
Okay.
So it's our sort of most undersubscribed part of the property. So lots of room is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And in the park, for dolly launched boats, we have 2 dedicated launch ramps up top.
Do you want me to lift you up?
Yeah.
You're good. No, you're good.
I see it. Good jump.
Yeah. So we have 2 dedicated launch ramps that
Okay.
aren't shared with anybody else except people hand launching their boats, right? And there's docks right off those launch ramps as well.
That'd be too far.
So
Okay.
if you, go ahead.
Sorry, Corey.
No, go
I'm
ahead.
gonna be in that unique situation where I would have a boat before I have a car. So
Yep.
what's gonna happen between that? Like, how does my laser get into the water?
Okay. So if you have a dolly for your laser, isn't it? It is a laser?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a dolly for your laser?
Okay. I mean, I'll buy whatever is needed.
Like, so hand launched dolly? Okay.
Okay.
So all you need to do is work it out with some friends to get your boat down here,
Yeah.
get it stored on the dolly.
Okay.
We can find you a spot where
Okay.
you can tie it down if you want to, or store it untied down if you wish. And then it's ready for you, stays here. Anytime you want to come down, you just roll it into the water and off you go.
Oh, so it would be sitting kind of half submerged.
No,
It's
no,
already
no,
on
sitting
the water.
actually
on
on
land.
shore.
Sitting on land.
I wish I had a
Okay.
picture. I don't have a picture. So there are about, Dominic, how many boats are in the park now? About 50, 100-ish? 80 boats. Okay, so called 80 boats that are sitting on their dollies, on the shore, in a dedicated spot that you
Yes.
can reuse all the time. So it's yours for the year.
How much manpower does it take to move? Oh,
So
okay.
generally a dolly,
For a laser?
for a laser is a one-person
person.
job. For an albacore, it might be a
Okay.
two-person job, or a big catamaran might be a two-person job. But
Okay.
a laser, a 420, a 505, they're all one person down the ramp. Tie the boat off for a
But
second.
like a strong one person?
No, I
or-
think you could probably pull it off. So
Okay.
there's 2 ramps, and we just changed one of the ramps, so it's a shallower grade this year.
Okay.
So if you had it on one and it felt too steep, you could use the other one. It's half the grade, and you'd be good.
And that's what every other albacore people do?
You want to speak to this, Dominic?
Okay.
He's the expert.
Yeah, absolutely correct. I have a boat in the harbour, but I have a boat, an albacore dinghy, 2-person dinghy. twice the size of a laser, but the same concept. In the spring, on the dinghy setup morning, kind of everybody teams together to help each other build their boats. And then they sit there on their hand carts, the dollies as we call them, all season, and we just push it down into the water anytime you want to sail it. And then when you finish sailing, you pull it back up and put it in the space that the guys have assigned on the map. Yep.
As long as other people have
This is normal.
Just mentioned that the dollies are balanced, so it's not a lot of weight on the.
Yeah, dollies balance. Yeah, yeah. So your boat, you'll have like 20. Your boat weighs like 120 pounds or so. You'll have only about 20 pounds that you have to lift because it balances itself. You're not picking it up bodily. Good.
Well, you have 25 new friends here who'll help you too. But the one thing I just noticed, it's a great question though. One thing I just noticed on this picture as we were talking through it and pointing to it an awful lot. This is on land, right? I don't want to state the obvious here, but these boats are in the water, and so to your point, they're submerged or half submerged. Some of them more submerged than we like them to be.
Yeah, no.
But
You're sort of getting into why Paul doesn't have a boat.
They're all floating. But this is on land. So these boats, they're sitting on land most of the time, unless they're out sailing. So you actually get out to these docks, and there's another dock right here that you can get out to. So it may not be obvious in the picture, but good question.
I don't know much about the park. I don't go there very often, but isn't there a winch there for pulling the boats up?
Yes.
Yep.
So yeah, Jeff's key point here was before on the west hand. Oh God.
This is why you don't have a.
Yeah, I know. There's two ramps in the park. On the west ramp, there was a winch installed on the ramp so that if boats were too heavy to be pulled up, they could be brought up by the winch. Are we putting that back down? Jury's out. So what we did is instead of putting a bigger, more reliable winch in, Jeff, we actually took the ramp and dropped it. So it used to be an 16% grade. Now it's down to 8. So
I got 7.
7. James says 7. It's down to 7%. So that made all the difference on the winch right there. So you should have no problem getting your boats in and out. And as I mentioned earlier, there are dozens of people around you who will help you, point you in the right direction. The guy in front of you right here is one of the key players in that game.
Could I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, 100%. Please do.
For the YouTube, okay. My follow-up question is, it sounds like I've already missed your November-March cycle.
Okay.
But I guess when you're just in the park, it's not as stringent, or miss the boats. Huh?
So a question for you. Do you own the boat right now?
Not yet.
Okay. So you've got a couple of options. This guy runs a program where you can actually buy some time on boats if you wanted to try things out.
Is that the syndicate?
That is the, what do you call it? The something rental. Dinghy rental program.
Okay.
And you have lasers, yes? Sean, we have lasers? Okay, so lasers.
I'll talk to these gentlemen.
We have lasers, 420s, 27-foot Catalina. No, lasers, 420s, Hobie weight. Why don't you just answer the question? How many do we have? What do we have? 7. And what type of boats do we have, Sean?
Hobie Wave, Hobie Bravo.
CADs, monohulls, laser, albacore. So you could try it out if you wanted to and just sort of see how do the mechanics work. I'm good with this.
Yeah.
If you ended up buying a laser, make sure you get a dolly to go with the laser.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And then just contact the office and say, new member, new boat, need a spot in the park, and we're undersubscribed right now, so they can probably put you in a slip right away.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we wanted.
I think she also needs insurance, no?
Yes, but good.
Well done, Jana. Well done.
Jana, well
You're up
done.
here next.
Catching up. Next Harbor Master right there. No. On a boat your size, it's probably covered under your household
It is
insurance, but something
25
worth
feet and
checking.
under.
On the rental thing,
Have to be
the
a
insurance is covered by, but you have to be a member. You'll figure it out. He's up next week.
There's a talk next week. It's going to cover all this.
Sit down. You're up next week. You're coming back. Other questions? Yes. I guess we got to move on. We're being given the wand.
Maybe I missed it, I was a bit late. How does seniority work? So you were saying if I partnered with somebody to buy a boat,
Yep.
and I'm not the member of record, then, or like, how does it work, if you wouldn't mind just?
Okay, I can do this one. So the way seniority works is each year you are a full member and have a boat here, you get essentially a point. And then that accumulates over time, and we use the number of points to calculate, kind of sort the list, figure out who gets slips. The way it works with a syndicate is that every member of the syndicate has to be eligible in order to have a slip, in order for the syndicate to have a slip. And the member of record's seniority is used to calculate which slip. So if you, for example, formed a syndicate with a member who was very senior, the chance of you getting a slip improves. If it's a brand new syndicate with all brand new members, then chances are good, but you're lower on the list.
Then if I'm not the member of record,
Yeah.
then I would still be a full member, right? Everybody has to be a full member?
Yes, correct. Yeah,
That's
correct.
And then I do get my point, even though I'm not the member of record?
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
You still get your point because you're a member, whether you have a boat or not. You can be, if you're a full member, even without a boat, you still get a point.
Yep,
All right, okay, well, thank you so much.
for sure. We've been told we have to book.
Oh, perfect. I'll rush through this one. Being a good member at NSC. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, talk really fast, that'll help.
Being a good member at NSC. This is where I get to strong arm some people. No, joking. The big thing is paying on time. We need your payments to show your intent so that we can organize your club. Moving that forward, emails, phone, replying to the club if the club reaches out with a question is huge. And again, reiterate, let the office know. By the end of this talk, that you will be dreaming that line tonight. There's a few key things, and again, opening the gate, yard closers, close to vehicles. We will communicate that to you so that you can be a good member and help everything move through the yard. A big thing that a lot of people forget is we're not a marina. We are a member-based club. We operate a little bit piece here and here like a marina, but we are not a marina. So contractors and especially surveyors on your boats are the boat owner's responsibility. You can't call the office and say, hey, someone's coming to work on my boat. Can you let them in and can you babysit them for the day? It's your boat. You're getting the work done on it. You're bringing that contractor in. They need to be insured, all that lovely jazz, but it's your responsibility as the boat owner to babysit or make appointments. Yes, if you're stuck without a babysitter or something comes up, call the office and say, hey, James, the surveyor's coming to my boat and I'm still in Orleans. I'm truly sorry. Can you let him in and I'll be there in 15 minutes? He's paying him $120 an hour or whatever it is. Yes, we'll make that work, but that's an exception to the rule. That's not the standard operating procedure. And I think we've hashed out the make your payments when they come through.
Yeah,
I will speed that one up for Corey to do the wrap up.
I'm good with this one. Okay, last slide. So a couple of heads up for 2023 that you should be aware of, comings and goings in the harbor and in the yard. So first off, I mentioned earlier that we've done a bunch of work up in the
April
park
1st.
to grade out the ramps and make some changes to Laser Hill. We're not totally done yet. Some of the crews are coming back in the spring. Of course, they're going to come back at the worst possible time, probably the day we're trying to launch boats. They want to put down some extra fill, do some hydroseeding to make the park a little bit more livable. So your patience, please. There's going to be a couple of unusual closures while those construction crews come through and do all their work. The Viper North American Class Championships are being hosted by the Nepean Sailing Club. Thank you, Renee. Mike, the date is, or Dominic?
Third week of September. Third week of September.
Third
You're
week
gonna
of,
win.
No.
third week of September. So the yard's going to be a little busier than normal, and we'll probably be carving out some space for a bunch of visiting boats. So a heads up, the teams will be looking for volunteers to help. It's a great opportunity to meet a bunch of really engaged sailors. If I say the word bilge sock, Does that ring a bell for anybody? So as part of our commitment to a clean marine, James has coordinated for the club to purchase, they're called bilge socks. They're designed to be put in the bilges of boats with inboard motors, and they absorb oil. So that if your bilge pump goes on while there's oil in your bilge, it isn't accidentally pumped into our harbor. So we will be issuing bilge socks to all members who have boats with inboards in the harbor, and we'll be providing a disposal facility at the end of the season for them to be properly disposed of. So we're kind of keen on, James has been leading a bunch of great activities to keep our harbor clean, to keep us clean. So this is going in the right direction. I mentioned earlier that for anyone here who's a trailer launch sailor, we are going to align the closure of the trailer launch with the sailing instructions so that you're going to be able to participate in the last race without feeling like you have to get your boat out of the yard before you finish. Early and late season sailing in the park, so for those of you with dolly launched boats, we're all on for that. I'm the point of contact for it, so if you're interested in sailing late into the season this year, starting early and sailing late, please let me know. And of course, the Harbor Masters race. So we run probably, Dominic, I would say the most popular race of the whole year. Forget about the rest of those weeknight races that you run with keel boats and whatnot. But we run the Harbor Masters race, which this year will be held on the 19th of August. I am the sponsor. It's a bunch of adults racing very small boats around the harbor itself. The race never leaves the harbor. It's something you want to be here for. So please mark it. Paul has a long track record of competing.
Or short.
Thank you very much.
You got to beat Doug Brown.
Oh man. And then one last note, late addition, we didn't put it on the slide, is a little change in the way our insurance works this year. Anybody who has a contractor on site this year doing work on their boat has to ensure that that contractor registers with the office. And I'm talking about everything. Survey, work on the boat, launching, hauling out, waxing, cleaning, like anything where they're on the property dealing with your boat, the office needs to be aware of them. And I think that's it for us. Is that it? Do we have questions?
Questions online.
Questions online?
Yes, please.
Thanks, Sean.
Three questions. One, a member's asked, what do I do if I'm stuck on a reef? Or not a reef, I guess, on a rock.
Yeah.
Okay. You can ask all three.
That's one. Second one is, who do I call if I need sailboat expertise, mechanical, such? And the other one was something else. Start with those two.
So, sailboat.
What do I do if I need assistance with the crane?
Okay.
Sailboat expertise, mechanical wise, on the website, on the business card downstairs, and there are other service contractors that we use in the yard that are, most of them are members. I won't read the list off tonight, but they are published on the website and they are downstairs on cards. Stop by the office, ask. I can point you in the right direction. There's too many to list right now, depending whether you want motor, canvas, sail, whatever. There's lots. Stuck on a reef. This has been the hard task because I was a kid here that went out in a boat and pulled people off reefs. But the club can no longer do that because of insurance and liability. If you are stuck on a reef, you need to learn how to either, the expression in sales speak is kedge yourself off, or if there is a risk to life or an injury, 911 is your answer. Their mandate is to protect life, not assets. So they will come and get you off your boat. Their mandate is not to tow your boat. Most of them will. They need to justify their existence. They need time on the water. And generally they will tow you back, but it's not their job to do that. Currently, there is hard aground. There is nothing on this stretch of the river that is set up for that, other than a friendly phone call to a friend.
Yeah. There was a third one there too, Sean. What was that?
Oh, crane.
Crane.
Crane familiarization will be during the trailer launch co-op, which is the Saturday before May 9th launch.
Right.
this year.
May 9th minus 7 days.
Sorry, May 6th.
May
Sorry,
6th,
my
May
bad.
6th minus 7 days.
Yes,
April
and
30th.
Park Davis is the point of contact for that.
Another good one came in, just to wrap it up. Can you just define or tell us about the trailer storage?
Okay.
Just give us the details of
Okay.
trailer storage.
Yeah, so it's pretty simple now, is we don't store empty trailers here. So bottom line is, if your boat is normally stored on a trailer, during the winter, you've got a slip out here that's cool, put the boat on its trailer, tuck it into the yard, we'll find a home for it, it's all good. But as soon as the boat's off the trailer leaves the property. And the simple reason for that is that trailers take up a vast amount of space compared to their cradle counterparts. So if you are interested, like I did this year, in switching from a trailer to a cradle, it's a good thing. A lot of people switch the other way because it gives them flexibility to remove their boat and take care of it closer to home. It's all good. But we don't store empty trailers. So, yeah, that's it.
Great. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Yeah.
I actually, although I've been a member for probably close to 25 years, learned a few things. And I'll tell some stories later about mooring and running aground. So thanks again. We do have QR cards, although Stephen, our PR director, messed up a bit and gave me one rather than 3. So you'll have to cut it in 3 tonight, or talk to Stephen when he's back from New York. Can you bring up the slide for the Legacy Fund? Oh, no, you're going the wrong way. Going the wrong way. Okay, well, since you're back there. Oh. Anyways, for those of you that contributed tonight, both in person and online, thank you very much. Just a reminder that for those online, you've got until about 10 o'clock tonight or next week to make a donation. Thanks again. And reminder that next week we have Dominic, who will talk about all things sailing. So, thank you very much, and good night.